A camel is an even-toed ungulate in the genus Camelus that bears distinctive fatty deposits known as humps on its back. Camels have long been domesticated and, as livestock, they provide food, milk and meat, and textiles, fiber and felt from hair. Camels are working animals especially suited to their desert habitat and are a vital means of transport for passengers and cargo. There are 3 surviving species of camel. The one-humped dromedary makes up 94% of the world's camel population, and the two-humped Bactrian camel makes up 6%. The wild Bactrian camel is a separate species and is now critically endangered. The word camel is also used informally in a wider sense, where the more correct term is camelid, to include all 7 species of the family Camelidae. The true camels, the above 3 species, along with the New World camelids, the llama, the alpaca, the guanaco, and the vicuña, which belong to the separate tribe Lamini. Camelids originated in North America during the Eocene, with the ancestor of modern camels, Paracamelus, migrating across the Bering Land Bridge into Asia during the late Miocene, around 6 million years ago. There are approximately 14 million camels alive as of 2010, with 90% being dromedaries. Dromedaries alive today are domesticated animals, mostly living in the Horn of Africa, the Sahel, Maghreb, Middle East and South Asia. The Horn region alone has the largest concentration of camels in the world, where the dromedaries constitute an important part of local nomadic life. They provide nomadic people in Somalia and Ethiopia with milk, food, and transportation. Over 1 million dromedary camels are estimated to be feral in Australia, descended from those introduced as a method of transport in the 19th and early 20th centuries. This population is growing about 8% per year. It was estimated at around 700,000 in 2008. Representatives of the Australian government have culled more than 100,000 of the animals, in part because the camels use too much of the limited resources needed by sheep farmers. A small population of introduced camels, dromedaries and Bactrians, wandered through southwestern United States after having been imported in the 19th century as part of the U.S. Camel Corps experiment. When the project ended, they were used as draft animals in mines and escaped or were released. 25 U.S. camels were bought and exported to Canada during the Caribou Gold Rush. The Bactrian camel is, as of 2010, reduced to an estimated 1.4 million animals, most of which are domesticated. The wild Bactrian camel is a separate species and is the only truly wild, as opposed to feral, camel in the world. The wild camels are critically endangered and number approximately 1,400, inhabiting the Gobi and Taklamakan deserts in China and Mongolia. Like horses, camels originated in North America and eventually spread across Beringia to Asia. They survived in the Old World, and eventually humans domesticated them and spread them globally. Along with many other megafauna in North America, the original wild camels were wiped out during the spread of the first indigenous peoples of the Americas from Asia into North America, 10 to 12,000 years ago, although fossils have never been associated with definitive evidence of hunting. Most camels surviving today are domesticated. Although feral populations exist in Australia, India and Kazakhstan, wild camels survive only in the wild Bactrian camel population of the Gobi Desert. When humans first domesticated camels is disputed. Dromedaries may have first been domesticated by humans in Somalia or South Arabia sometime during the 3rd millennium BC, the Bactrian in Central Asia around 2500 BC, as at Shar-i-Sokhta, also known as the Burnt City. Iran. Martin Hyde's 2010 work on the domestication of the camel tentatively concludes that humans had domesticated the Bactrian camel by at least the middle of the 3rd millennium somewhere east of the Zagros Mountains, with the practice then moving into Mesopotamia. Hyde suggests that mentions of camels in the patriarchal narratives may refer, at least in some places, to the Bactrian camel, while noting that the camel is not mentioned in relationship to Canaan. Recent excavations in the Timna Valley by Litter Sapir Hen and Erez Ben Yosef discovered what may be the earliest domestic camel bones yet found in Israel or even outside the Arabian Peninsula, dating to around 930 BC. This garnered considerable media coverage, as it is strong evidence that the stories of Abraham, Jacob, Esau, and Joseph were written after this time. The existence of camels in Mesopotamia, but not in the eastern Mediterranean lands, is not a new idea. The historian Richard Bouliet did not think that the occasional mention of camels in the Bible meant that the domestic camels were common in the Holy Land at that time. The archaeologist William F. Albright, writing even earlier, saw camels in the Bible as an anachronism. Desert tribes and Mongolian nomads use camel hair for tents, yurts, clothing, bedding and accessories. Camels have outer guard hairs and soft inner down, and the fibers are sorted by color and age of the animal. The guard hairs can be felted for use as waterproof coats for the herdsmen, while the softer hair is used for premium goods. The fiber can be spun for use in weaving or made into yarns for hand knitting or crochet. Pure camel hair is recorded as being used for Western garments from the 17th century onwards, and from the 19th century a mixture of wool and camel hair was used. The United States Army established the U.S. Camel Corps, stationed in California, in the 19th century. One may still see stables at the Benicia Arsenal in Benicia, California, where they nowadays serve as the Benicia Historical Museum. Though the experimental use of camels was seen as a success, John B. Floyd, Secretary of War in 1858, recommended that funds be allocated towards obtaining 1,000 more camels. The outbreak of the American Civil War in 1861 saw the end of the Camel Corps. Texas became part of the Confederacy, and most of the camels were left to wander away into the desert. France created a Maharasht Camel Corps in 1912 as part of the Armée d'Afrique in the Sahara in order to exercise greater control over the camel-riding Tuareg and Arab insurgents, as previous efforts to defeat them on foot had failed. The Free French Camel Corps fought during World War II, and camel-mounted units remained in service until the end of French rule over Algeria in 1962. In 1916, the British created the Imperial Camel Corps. It was originally used to fight the Senussi, but was later used in the Sinai and Palestine campaign in World War I. The Imperial Camel Corps comprised infantrymen mounted on camels for movement across desert, though they dismounted at battle sites and fought on foot. After July 1918, the Corps began to become run down, receiving no new reinforcements, and was formally disbanded in 1919. In World War I, the British Army also created the Egyptian Camel Transport Corps, which consisted of a group of Egyptian camel drivers and their camels. The Corps supported British war operations in Sinai, Palestine, and Syria by transporting supplies to the troops. The Somaliland Camel Corps was created by colonial authorities in British Somaliland in 1912. It was disbanded in 1944. Bactrian camels were used by Romanian forces during World War II in the Caucasian region. At the same period, the Soviet units operating around Astrakhan in 1942 adopted local camels as draft animals due to shortage of trucks and horses, and kept them even after moving out of the area. Despite severe losses, some of these camels ended up as far west as to Berlin itself. The Bikaner Camel Corps of British India fought alongside the British Indian Army in World Wars I and II. The Tropas Nomadas, Nomad troops, were an auxiliary regiment of Sahrawi tribesmen serving in the colonial army in Spanish Sahara, today Western Sahara. Operational from the 1930s until the end of the Spanish presence in the territory in 1975, the Tropas Nomadas were equipped with small arms and led by Spanish officers. The unit guarded outposts and sometimes conducted patrols on camelback. Camel milk is a staple food of desert nomad tribes and is sometimes considered a meal itself. A nomad can live on only camel milk for almost a month. Camel milk can readily be made into yogurt, but can only be made into butter if it is soured first, churned, and a clarifying agent is then added. Until recently, camel milk could not be made into camel cheese because rennet was unable to coagulate the milk proteins to allow the collection of curds. Developing less wasteful uses of the milk, the FAO commissioned Professor J.P. Ramit of the École Nationale Supérieure d'Agronomie et des Industries Alimentaires, who was able to produce curdling by the addition of calcium phosphate and vegetable rennet in the 1990s. The cheese produced from this process has low levels of cholesterol and is easy to digest, even for the lactose intolerant. Camel milk can also be made into ice cream.